I want to talk about Ready Player One.
Okay.
Because I watched that movie and I did not like it at all. Not even a little bit.
Wow.
Not even a little bit. But you liked it.
I watched it and I did like it. But I Ready Player One for me was like there was a movie in there. There was a few scenes in there.
Somewhere.
From a movie that I would love. And there were a lot of scenes that while like there was stuff in Ready Player One where I feel like, if I was 11 years old, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This movie would be the most awesome thing I would see. You know what I mean? I would go to that movie and think, man, how great was that movie? You know what I mean?
Well, I guess if you were 11 years old but still had lived through enough of the 80s to have the feel of nostalgia.
In some ways, I think that yeah, I mean, I think that there was enough there for an 11-year-old because you know some of that stuff, you know what I mean? But like the games and all that kind of stuff, 11-year-old would just be, yeah, man, this is great, And I think that the main character, and the way the characters worked out and just the whole thing. I mean, the thing about that movie is Spielberg put together a good movie. And when I say it's put together well, it's compelling. Now, the main character doesn't really get any development whatsoever.
No, the main character has no development.
And I've got some other thoughts. I've got a deeper reading of that movie that we can get to in a second. But, it's from in that stuff. But I mean, as far as the nuts and bolts of the movie, it's not like it doesn't.
Yes, it was it had a start, a middle, and an end.
Well, it carries you along, like, you know what I mean. You're never just like it's just a weird boondoggle. I mean, if you think that
I felt that a few times.
You don't really have the time to think about it because the thing changes so much. You know what I mean? It was
in a sense
it's put together by someone who knows how to make a movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like that's the thing. It's like it doesn't have a lot of time. In my opinion, it doesn't have the kind of core structural issues that big budget films from lesser filmmakers sometimes get mired with. But
I think that maybe my issue with why I wasn't able to like kind of, because I did feel like I was kind of being drug along like in a not very pleasant way. I think maybe just the whole dichotomy of having the dual world sort of thing. Like you have a VR world and the VR presence, and then you have the real world and the real stuff. And there wasn't really a whole lot going on, or at least they didn't focus it too much on the real world stuff.
No.
But for me, there weren't any stakes in the virtual world because it was a virtual world. It was a video game. And there aren't really any stakes there. Like if a character died, then what? They zeroed out, they lost their coins? Like I didn't care about that. Like, and in the real world, like they tried to add stakes by fucking blowing up.
We'll get to that in a second. Like, okay. I want to say that my general vibe from that movie was that it was great. I mean, not great, but that I enjoyed it. There were things about it, but I mean, it had obvious issues. There were many, many, many things about it where like, okay, this would never happen. And, or like even in this dystopia they've set up.
It's a weird dystopia. It was
this seems
very
beyond
weird
dystopia.
Pale.
You know what
and
I mean?
Was it Cleveland?
It was, yeah.
Why was it in Cleveland?
I guess they felt that was I don't know. It was in Ohio.
I mean, it was all dingy and dirty and gray, but that's Cleveland today. Like, I didn't really get the sense that it was like.
I didn't get the sense that the whole world was like that. I got the sense that just where he lived, like in the stacks, was kind of like that.
Yeah.
And the other parts of Cleveland were probably fine. I mean, the thing is that. And I've read a lot of critiques about the movie, and I think most of them are generally on. I think it's what you're looking for in a movie. You know what I mean? I think if you really wanted to see that main character developed and maybe go through some kind of like real kind of like, then that was not what you were going to get. But well, I think the movie.
I think a part of that, like, and I think the movie is an adventure movie.
Yeah.
Like, and that's why that's why Spielberg did it, because he's great at that, and he brought to it that kind of, and maybe this is what you're talking about when you say it's pretty well put together. Like there was that flow of an adventure movie that took you from moment to moment in a way that felt as close to natural as you're going to get in a movie about characters living in a virtual world.
Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of that. I mean, maybe it's because I'm a kid from the '80s, and there was a little bit of that Spielberg magic in there, and just some of the nuts and bolts of the way the film moved around.
Maybe it's just the video game person in me, but it's like a lot of that was just like, it's. They would have figured out the trick to that race right away. Like, we have the internet. It wouldn't have been like,
well, that's funny. I read a review.
Parzival all of a sudden.
I read a review that said that as long as they've been working on that, someone would have thought to go.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have happened in like seconds, really.
Yeah,
so many people doing it. Someone would be like,
it's 1,000 monkeys in the typewriter
totally.
thing. So, like,
honestly,
the movie hinged so much on like Parzival being like this brilliant player based on his knowledge of pop culture. But there wasn't really any element to that character that made me think, oh, this guy's brilliant.
No,
but he was just kind of a dork, really. And I guess maybe everybody, but everybody else it was meant to be like the whole message of the movie was like, don't, succumb to escapism too much, live your life and blah, blah, blah. Cause like everybody is in this game so much so that they're playing in the streets, running out into traffic and shit.
This is yeah.
Like,
so here's the thing.
But if people played at that level.
Have you seen Citizen Kane?
Oh, Jesus Christ. I think a while ago.
Okay. To me, this movie was like Citizen Kane. Okay, wait, bear with me.
All right, that's the quote. That's how we're going to end it. They're going to put that on they're going to put that on the box.
Citizen Kane, if Citizen Kane focused on the reporter at the very beginning who goes around interviewing people about Charles Foster Kane and like his 6 friends.
Like, they just focused on the reporter.
If it was a lot about him. And the Citizen Kane isn't about him because that guy's not all that interesting. And Wayne Watts or whatever is not all that interesting a character. Wade Watts. He's not that interesting. And that's my issue. The movie, the interesting character, is the guy that built the fucking
game.
Thing. And there were some moments in that movie.
Holiday, I think.
That were, I thought, that were great. I mean, some moments. That scene at the end when he's in his room. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was,
and it's like he's built a perfect simulacra of his room, and he sees himself playing. I was like, "Oh, weird. We've drilled down into the stuff here." You know what I mean?
That was really the only part of the movie I liked was that scene. Well, and the Shining moment.
I was gonna say, and when they were in the Shining moment, because those scenes are, I mean, other than the Shining stuff, just being like, "Holy shit, how did they do this?"
Yeah, that looked
it was
amazing.
unbelievable. I was like, man, honestly. And you had told me how much you didn't like it. I was like, dude, this movie's worth the price of admission just for this scene. You know what I mean? But, man, the idea of like that being the movie they watched on that guy's first date where he didn't kiss the girl, and they have to go back into that movie because and they move through it, and then there's she's the girl, they're dancing, and then the little scene where she's talking to the guy's avatar, but we really get the sense that he somehow uploaded his consciousness into the Oasis, and he was still kind of, a ghost in the machine. Like he was still somehow alive in it. You know what I mean? Which I like how they didn't make a thing about it. He says like, "You're not an avatar, are you?" at the very end, and he's like,
and he just kind of walks away.
He's like, "What are you?" He's like, "See you later, Wayne." You know what I mean? It's like, and that was fine. But that little moment where she goes, she was actually, he's like, "Go." He's like, he doesn't want to, because it's like, he's like, I mean, he's still vibe. It's a hurtful place. We're developing that character.
Right.
And that was great.
And honestly, that character was the one character that had the most development in the whole movie.
And that was the character that was the most interesting character in the show.
Yeah, he just wasn't in it, really.
And that's my problem. That's my main issue. When I say there was a movie in that movie that I really wanted to see, I wanted to see the Citizen Kane version of that movie where Wayne Watts is basically just a vessel where they move through this character's life, and the lessons that he's trying to impart, are more explicit in the examples. And
they were close to doing that.
That's my point. But the 11-year-old kid doesn't want to see that. And so there was a conscious choice made that we're going to give a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and we're going to put some 80s pop culture references
I don't feel like
there.
this movie was made for 11-year-old kids. This movie felt to me like it was definitely made for 30-year-olds who wanted to have that nostalgia thing tickle. Because, 11-year-olds, what nostalgia to them is Phantom Menace, like,
yeah, but you know what? The thing is there are lots of stuff in there that I think 11-year-olds would think was awesome. They're not.
No, I mean, and there was more modern references.
I mean,
and
yeah,
whatnot in it,
and
too.
someone I know has said that they took their 5-year-old, thinking their 5-year-old wouldn't know anything in there, but there was a ton of shit in there. 5-year-old was like, yeah. It's. I mean, the thing is, and any movie, the movie stuck with me for a few days. You know what I mean? After I saw it, yeah, I was really thinking about some of the implications therein, and I mean, I don't think any of the criticisms, yours included, that I've read with the movie are wrong. I think that but it's like, again, it's almost like they had like 10 pounds of shit to get in that bag, and they had to they were able to get on some, they were able to get on some of it, and they were able to get on some others. I think that the movie definitely, to me, it feels like there were those pop culture moments, but it just seems the basic narrative of the movie. I mean, it almost feels like an 80s. It almost feels like an 80s movie that would be a reference in the movie. You know what I mean? It's almost like a mirror hold up to a fucking mirror. You know what I'm saying? Because there's the guy at the end who comes with the gun, and then he's got the henchman lady with the bangs, and Hollywood. And Hollywood. I'm speaking directly to Hollywood right now. What's up with femme fatale chicks with the bangs? The Betty Page thing. It's a hot look. I'll agree. But Blade Runner 2049, you got the chick with the bangs, and she's the badass robot chick that goes around fucking stuff up. And in this movie, you got the chick with the bangs, and she's the badass Betty Page chick going around fucking stuff up.
One of the funniest
That's
things,
becoming
actually,
a trope.
One of the funniest things from like my viewing of the movie in the theater was that scene when they're in the van, they're fighting, and he kicks her out of the van onto the street. Like, in the theater, there were audible gasps, like people thought she really died right there, because she should have. Like, she got kicked out of a movie van. Like, that was a very violent scene.
Definitely smarted.
But the thing that really got me at the very end was like, they're in the van, and then what's his name, Ben Mendelsohn, like he plays the villain. He was great. But he shows up with the gun, and he opens up the van door, and he's about to shoot him or whatever. He has a moment where he starts to get to grips with his human side. But then the cops show up, and I'm like, "What the fuck have you been?"
Exactly.
Like, you established this dystopian world where all of this crazy shit has happened. He blew up a tenement building.
He killed countless people.
There are thousands of slaves.
Drones roaming around murdering people at will. And then there are cops. I just assumed that there were no cops.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, they're cops now?
For an hour and a half of the movie, I was on board with no cops.
Yes.
And then they show up, and I was just like, wait a second. What world am I living in now?
No, that's all. That's completely true. I mean, it's like, that doesn't make any sense at all. And it's just like, where the fuck are the cops?
Yeah, like, for the first half of the movie, I was like, does this world have cops?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what level of dystopia we're living in, because we're not really exposed to that world that much. We just see the trailers.
Yeah, but you blow up a fucking trailer park and kill a bunch of people. You'd think that they would go and look at the explosive.
Right.
Actually, it was a whole bunch. They would know what the explosive. They were planted by drones. They would look at, they would get to the bottom of it. They would figure it out. It was IOI. I mean, they didn't do a whole lot to hide their footsteps.
No.
I mean, they acted with impunity. You know what I mean? And the idea that cops would show up at the end and there'd be some level of
we got you.
I can't just kill people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
What about all the slaves you have under your basement? Like, what the fuck are they even doing there? They're like mining in a virtual, like, are they Bitcoin miners or some shit? Like, well, that whole element was like just really, really, really bizarre for me. And like, I love how the kid, like, his mom explodes, and like 10 minutes later, he's with that girl. Like, hey,
yes,
what's going on, girl?
Well, I it's one of those things. It's like, again, and that's what I talk about, like the pace and stuff. That would be a big blow. I mean, that was the person he lived with, almost his entire life. She's dead. He doesn't have any parents. He has to go through this again.
Right.
You know what I mean?
He's ostensibly homeless now.
Yeah, and he's like, and he just bounces back so fucking fast. I mean, obviously, if Spielberg were here, he'd probably say, "What do you want me to do? We want to have a fucking 5-minute scene of him crying about it." You know what I mean?
Yeah, and my friend of mine went, my friend Kelly went to go see the movie at South by, and Spielberg was there, and he said that before the screening, he basically said something that amounted to, you know, I did the best I could. So I'm not giving Spielberg a hard time. And like for the movie for what it is, you know, it's an adventure movie. If you could suspend a lot of your disbelief, I think you can have fun with it.
Yeah, no, I think that, if you start thinking like, where were the cops and why is this guy? And like,
once you start asking a lot of questions, things can fall apart.
But the film, I think, may actually be studied years from now
as like a pop culture sort of.
Yeah, we might have reached meta saturation with that movie, and it starts to beg some questions. The movie, and I'm not sure it's on purpose, but maybe it is. I mean, I don't know, but it starts to ask some questions, and so I think the basic idea of the movie, some kind of weird blending of, and if I'm gonna, the parts that appeal to me, some kind of weird blending of Willy Wonka and Citizen Kane, where you've got this character who creates this world.
Yeah, it was very Willy Wonka.
Well, that was on purpose. I mean,
because there are even musical scores that play to that.
And they actually tried to get Willy Wonka. They tried to get
dude that died.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Was
Willy
he alive?
Wonka.
Was he alive when
he was when they were starting to shoot, when they were starting to put it together, but then he died.
Ah, that's a bummer.
I knew his. I mean,
yeah, no, it's slipping my mind.
Kill me.
It's slipping my mind too.
I'm not gonna be able to move on.
Are we gonna pause this until we can Google it?
So they had tried to get him, but I thought that the guy who played that character was really great, and I just. Some of the like how they recreated the scenes, were clumsy. I thought, they kind of give you a little bit of exposition of like they've recreated it based on, he cataloged everything. You know what I mean?
Oh,
every scene of his life, and some of this stuff you're like, maybe there could have been a more elegant way. Although honestly, there was some emotional heft there that you don't get anywhere else in the movie. That I think. There was something to be said for that, but not in the way that you think. I mean, obviously, like playing video games and all this stuff, it's like, go outside once in a while. But and the guy,
it was very condescending to gamers. Really.
Well, I mean, on some level, I don't know how much of that's actually in the book. A lot of people said the movie was better than the book because they said the movie wasn't as much an orgiastic, pop culture a-thon as the book was, and they tied up the way they tie it up. The kind of arc they give it, is better in the movie. But is the movie about gaming, or is it really about kind of looking backward? In a movie that spends so much time, kind of jerking off these pop culture references.
Gene Wilder.
Oh my God, I had it in my head 2 seconds ago. It starts to wonder. It's like, living in the past. I mean, this main, as much as he was about the future and creating this oasis, he seems to have lived in the past to the point where he creates his own bedroom.
Yeah.
And it's like, when I was younger, or as someone I've thought about growing up, I thought, in the future, if you were like an eccentric billionaire, I was like, I might build my childhood home. And like look at pictures and recreate it exactly so that I could walk around in it. You know what I mean? Like when I first. So when I saw that scene, you know what I mean? It really gravitated with me in a certain way, and I was like, this is really cool. And he's playing ColecoVision, which Zach had a ColecoVision. You know what I mean? And I remember playing it. I remember those controllers, and I remember playing Star Wars on ColecoVision at Zach's house. And I just thought his room looked so cool. The little kid in me thought that room was so cool. And I realized it made me think of rooms in 80s movies when you'd see kids' rooms and they'd be amazing.
They would look like that.
Everything, rooms in movies, houses in movies are always amazing. Yeah. They're always cooler than your house.
Yeah, my room
always cooler
never
than
looked
your
that
room.
cool.
And my room was, not even as big as the studio,
Well, this is a big studio. My room now isn't as big as this. No, I get what you're saying. It's really funny that all the things that you gravitate towards with the movie are the things that I don't associate them with the movie. Like, it's really almost like there are two different movies that were just kind of mashed together.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing is I liked that other movie a lot.
And for me,
and the other movie didn't really bother me. I didn't think it was great.
Well, it didn't
really bother me.
And I recognize the second movie's there, and I like that too, and that's good. But for me, I could not get past the first movie because it was very CGI heavy, and I didn't particularly like a lot of the CGI. And I get they were trying to make it look like a video game, and I'm just kind of over that. Just by virtue of my work, So
well, see, I think that's unique.
That's a unique thing to me.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like it's the Rorschach test. I can see how the insider gaming baseball stuff in a way, because I will say it almost seems like it's a movie about video games. Like there's an aspect of it where it's a movie about video games made by people that had really never ever played a video game or hung out with people that played video games.
Or ever made one. Like, I was baffled by the IOI company. Like, what the fuck? Like, they were the most evil corporation. Like, Exxon isn't as evil as those fucking dudes. Like, Halliburton has done
and
more.
That's what I mean when I say that it reminded me in some aspects of the very movies that it was referencing. I think that was on purpose. I mean, the way the ending happens, it was very like the ending of Die Hard. You know what I mean? Where it's like the cops all show up, and the bad guys are carted out.
And everyone's there, they're tied up. Like, they put Simon Pegg is there, and he's like, hey, it was me.
They
and
put
all
the
that
girl
stuff.
and the guy in the same car. I did like the scene with Simon Pegg a little bit.
That was great.
Where he tells them, like, we're going to, and he almost kind of chokes up a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you now the scene that was missing from the movie that would have made the movie, that would have given it an extra little bit of emotional depth, in my opinion.
All right.
This is the scene. So, when he gets the pin, and maybe I might be missing something, because when he gets the pin at the end, when he goes and it's the Easter egg is there.
The final test.
And they're like, here, just sign the thing. And he goes, no, this isn't right. This is like when Holiday made the other guy sign over his rights to the company. And that's what he was talking about, right? Or was he referencing the scene,
because he was saying that Holiday's biggest regret was screwing over his friend like that.
Yeah.
So, like, that's why that was the final test, to make sure that they didn't make the same mistake he made.
I think you should have seen the scene where Simon Pegg signs the papers, where he makes... I think you should have actually seen the scene where they actually went through and they signed the papers. You know what I mean? Before. They should have somehow...
So that you could anchor that moment too?
So that when he doesn't have to tell you an exposition. Show me, don't tell me.
Right.
If you had seen it, and that would have really given a sense that, because they talk about how he's being pushed out, like Simon Pegg and him had that conversation.
Yeah.
But if they had followed that up, or even with the scene where, they actually are with the lawyers or whatever, and he signs it away, and they have some dialogue, and there's an emotional scene there where you get a sense that, that Holiday's making a mistake, and that and you get that sense.
Right.
When he sits down and says, sign the paper,
there would have been the moment, like,
you would have had that thought. You know what I mean? You would have been, this reminds me of that. And then when he goes, wait, this isn't right.
But because without that scene just kind of seemed random.
It does. It's completely random.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's only buttressed. The weirdness of that moment is only buttressed by the fact that it then leads into the best scene of the entire movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where you're like, well, shit, this is what the movie was about the whole time. You know what I mean? But it's like, it's weird. A part of me read that thing is not just about video games, but about, it's like, look at all this pop culture crap.
Yeah, it isn't just about video. It is about pop culture. But at the same time,
it's like, live, be here now. You know what I mean? It
is definitely a critique of pop culture's and growing influence and power and stature, and its use as a status symbol, I guess, in some forms,
and just a fascination. It's like a preoccupation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I am someone that watches, between 5 and an hour's worth of YouTube related Star Wars related YouTube videos a day. You know what I mean? So it starts to me. It's like, he's saying that, it's whatever it is. He created this environment so he can just kind of live in the past, you know what I mean, forever.
Yeah.
And then he regrets the chances he didn't take, and those things are gone now. And I think that there's a powerful message in there that I think it could have been hit home more, but at the same time, they don't want to make this kind of preachy film for 40-something dudes. I mean, they want it to be a fun time at the movies for everybody. So I just think that there was some stuff in there that I thought, like, if it added that one scene, it would have kind of taken it up a notch for me. And I think that I read a critique of the movie, which it seemed a little bit reaching, but their argument was, so this movie takes place in 2045, right?
Oh, okay. I forgot that.
And the Oasis goes online in 2025. So there's 20 years.
It's been online for a while.
Yeah, that's why it's so advanced.
Yeah.
And that's why everyone plays it all
to be
the time.
perfectly honest, I thought to myself, this must be a fucking expensive ass game to run with all the licenses they have to do, unless eventually corporate consolidation ends up where one corporation owns Marvel, DC, Disney, fucking
everything.
Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Well,
various games owns everything.
Yeah. Like, other than that, like, all their money must have been spent paying those licensing
honestly,
fees.
they might be a deal where, they would work that out. I think on a platform as popular as the Oasis, you probably would buy those things from the various license holders. Like, if you wanted a Back to the Future skin, you would have to buy that from, the studio. You wouldn't be buying it from Gregarious. You'd be buying it from Paramount or their online Back to the Future store. Yeah,
probably.
You know what I mean?
But even still, that would be a lot of.
But it's that's a funny concept that most people that don't make games don't know anything about. Once you've spent a game looking for art that accidentally has a fucking
copyrighted image on it or something, you're like, there's
candy
a lot
bar,
of that in there.
Candy bar wrapper and a candy machine. It's like, I see Snickers in there. We gotta get that out of there.
You know what my favorite Oasis part of the movie was?
What?
It was. And this is also probably unique to me and other nerds from 90s anime-loving people. It's when the Gundam showed up. Like, that's all I
knew
really...
you would love the Gundam because...
That's all I really wanted to see.
When you talked about Pacific Rim, the guy takes out a sword, you were like, it was so great.
That was and you know what? I saw Pacific Rim Uprising a few weeks ago, too. And, like, my favorite part of that movie was when the robots fought each other, like the giant, because that's also, like, that's Gundam, that's anime, that's what I loved when I was a kid. I loved watching giant robots fight each other, because that was the coolest, especially when they were piloted by people, because that's all I wanted to do, was be like, I loved Crash and Burn, I loved Robot Jocks, like, anything where a dude was piloted.
We are dead. We are Robot Jocks.
But yeah, so like when that Gundam came out, I was like, I'm all about this. Like, that was great. And I also, I speculate based on nothing that TJ Miller probably had an on-screen role that was.
You think so?
I think so. I mean, he was
funny.
He was great. Like, and that's the
TJ Miller's funny.
He's an asshole, but he's funny.
Yeah, it's it goes back to our cognitive dissonance conversation from earlier. But right. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen that scene to kind of bring it home. But yeah, I think the movie overall I enjoyed my experience watching the movie. I agree that it had issues, that I won't even remotely try to defend. And it didn't do the thing that really resonated with me. I got just a taste of it.
Yeah.
But I would say that it's worth the price of admission. You know what I mean? If you're 11 years old, I imagine it would just be freaking awesome. If you like video games and you're 11 years old,
one thing I noted, there were a bunch of kids in the theater when I watched it.
Yeah.
And, like, that movie loves saying shit. Like,
oh, really?
They said shit like all the time. I was like, wow. And then it was like, it's fucking Chucky. I was like, man.
Did he say fucking Chucky?
Yeah, he's like, it's fucking Chucky. I was like, wow, this movie really went for it. Like, right up to that PG-13 R border. It just stuck the landing right there.
Yeah, it's funny because, some of the stuff just seemed, it's weird. After that Shining bit, you know what I mean?
And that was definitely the high watermark of that movie.
After the Shining bit, everything after that was kind of a lull.
Yeah.
Except
except the attic scene.
Oh, the attic scene was gold. I like that scene almost more than the Shining sequence, but everything else is just kind of I mean, it's fun to watch. I mean, that's the thing I'll say for it. It's like it's visually the action and all the stuff. The visuals are great, but it's just like the Shining scene really seemed to. That's where it's like. That's where to me. It really hit on all 8 cylinders of what they could do with this premise.
And yeah,
you know what I mean?
And part of me when I saw that was like,
like you've been holding out on me.
Like
That's the way I felt.
I kind of wish that they had done that with like other movies, but then the other part is like, well, if they had done that with other movies, that it would have just felt like it was, just ripping off other movies and Frankensteining their own movie based off of scenes from other movies. So I don't quite know how I feel. I think they probably hit the sweet spot just doing a really great Shining sequence and not kind of meddling with everything else.
I agree. I think that there's some things like supposedly in the book, the character of Artemis is a joke. Like she's so thinly written and basically is just kind of like a woman prize for the guy at the end. And so they did a lot in the movie to kind of beef her character up and give her some,
Yeah, they kind of gave her her own.
And I think, some of the stuff that they were doing, some of the stuff they touched on.
Oh, but wasn't she hideous though? She was so hideous. You're not gonna like me because I'm hideous.
Oh.
It's like, bitch,
well, that was
you got like a little bit of a little
that was the funny thing too. Yeah, I thought the exact same thing. I was like, guys, he meets Artemis and she's like smoking hot.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like,
oh, but I've got a little birthmark that you can't see because my hair covers it anyway.
They wanted to challenge us that they could have made it some dude.
No, they should have made
in his 70s.
They should have made it the girl from Master of None.
Yeah.
That would have been the real challenge there. No disrespect to her, but I mean, they're not really pushing the boundaries the way that you make them think they were gonna when you show when she. That's why he got over his mom so quick. It was like, oh shit!
He hit fucking pay dirt. He showed up. He was like, dude.
Yeah, exactly. My Buckaroo Banzai costume really paid off.
No shit. He was like, this is gold. Yeah, I mean that was a little, and that's the thing. It's like. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't challenging in that regard at all. It pretty much worked like, every 80s movie. And in that
respect, it was very a very well done homage to 80s movies.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I guess that's the thing. It's like all that stuff wasn't that interesting.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean? And so I didn't find it probably as offensive as you did because I don't have to exist in gamer world as much. You know what I mean? So I didn't, while I got it and I got that would be like, there was some line.
Well, okay. So the thing is like, it's not even so much that I find it offensive. Cause like, I'm not
just annoying.
I'm not shy at all about my distaste of gamers.
But
it's just like the message was like, it just had this air of condescension to it. Like, like, stop playing your games and live in the real world. It's like, well, you're doing it just because you found a fucking girl, all right? There's still people that use video games to escape really horrible situations that they have to live through. Like, what about the kid whose parents beats them? Like, now you're shutting down the Oasis on Tuesdays? Tuesdays.
Well, I mean, 2 days a week. I guess in the book, he was like, I'm not logging into the Oasis ever again.
Yeah, in the book, he just walks away from it.
Yeah, but
that makes better sense.
In the show, he's just like, I will shut it down a couple days a week.
Yeah,
but the funny thing is,
big government controlling your life.
The funny was someone was like, with all this money, you could have cured world. Where I was like, slow down, dude. It's like, Jesus Christ, it's like, what do they want everybody? With all the money we made, we cured world hunger.
We cured world hunger.
Are you happy? Does this make sense to you? No, I mean, yeah, I didn't get the sense that it was, that it was so much condescending. I I think that it was talking about. I think that in setting up its kind of dystopia where people were pretty checked out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That you know,
like,
it wasn't at that point.
Like, don't check out. You pay attention to this terrible shit you're living in. I want you to look at it.
Yeah, but I mean,
I got mine, Jack. I'm gonna bang my girlfriend. You fucking deal with that shit.
Well, that scene at the end,
Oasis off.
He's making out. Oasis off. He's like making out with her in some swanky ass cool flat. The like this kind of pan shot, this dolly shot that goes across it. There's some super cool leather couch, and they're in some kind of Herman Miller chair, just making out. You know, and I was just like, God damn, dude, this guy really fucking turned his whole shit around. You know.
Man, it's a good thing his mom's dead. He doesn't have to worry about that anchor around him anymore.
Yeah, her boyfriend, her asshole boyfriend.
Yeah, yeesh.
But yeah,